Welcome to the Free Cheese episode 545. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Zellner.
Hello.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. Matt, this week we're going to discuss Gravity Rush. We're going to share our time with it, both now and when it originally came out. We're going to rank it on the list. All of that and more coming up soon. But first, Matt, what is the opposite of Silent Hill?
I don't know. Where are you going with this one? The opposite of Silent Hill? Probably something cheerful. I don't know. It's easy, not mentally draining, not scary.
Sure.
I'm just trying to think of something. Honestly, maybe our game next week might be the closest thing to the opposite.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. WarioWare Incorporated, that is. What if I told you it was Gravity Rush?
How so?
Gravity Rush is created by the same creator of Silent Hill and Siren, Keiichiro Toyama, who got his start working as an artist at Konami. And it was after the success of the Resident Evil series that Konami said, hey, we can do that too. Who wants to do one? So he started work on that. But all the while working on Silent Hill stuff, he was kind of thinking of the opposites and, making art and things and coming up with character ideas that would, over a decade later, turn into Gravity Rush.
Wow.
I know. And of course, he's now no longer with Sony and is over at Bokeh Studio, along with a lot of other ex-Japan studio folks, and they are working on Slitterhead, which looks pretty rad. But we're here to talk about his 2012 video game, Gravity Rush, or Gravity Days, as it was known in Japan. Gravity Rush, developed by Japan Studio, specifically Team Gravity within Japan Studio, published by Sony Computer Entertainment, released on the PlayStation Vita in North America on June 12th, 2012. The back of the box reads, manipulate gravity to save a world that's falling apart. Gain a new perspective as you take on the role of Kat, a strong-willed girl seeking the means to protect her future in a world that's crumbling to pieces. Tilt and move the PlayStation Vita system, taking gravity into your own hands to deliver devastating attacks, uncover the secrets to your past, and explore a mysterious world. Matt, what is Gravity Rush to you?
Kind of going into this, one of the prime titles of the Vita. Dare I say even maybe its flagship title, in my opinion. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, I kind of knew kind of Kat became a character out of... So I never played it at launch. This is my first time playing it. I knew kind of Kat became a character because she made it into PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. DLC, though, right? Yep. Over Crash Bandicoot, mind you. And no, I just like this was like one of the early AAA titles on the Vita. I just remember, I don't know, it kind of stood out, and it did good enough for a sequel, which I started playing, but it didn't stick. I think I started playing that one when I got my Vita, so I was playing a lot of stuff at the same time, getting the experience, and I think that one just kind of played like the first half an hour, fell off, and I moved on to something else. But that was my experience with Gravity Rush, and that's kind of what I knew of it going into this conversation.
Yeah, I think the thing you pointed out, like it being the sort of core titular or synonymous title with the Vita, is the reason why it ended up on the list this year. For me, kind of we've talked a little bit about some of the games that are coming up. Of course, we've got a schedule published on the website of the next few weeks. And while not everything's out there, I can talk a little bit about some of the stuff. But, opening the season with Halo Combat Evolved as one of our Wii Sports killers, part of what makes Halo stand out for me was that it was a first-party title. It launched a console, and it did a lot of things with that console that weren't done before. And looking forward at building the rest of my list of games for this year, you'll see that thread kind of continue. Gravity Rush was one of those where it was doing things with the Vita that you couldn't do on other platforms. Now, of course, this game was originally in development for PlayStation 3, and I think you probably could have done some of that stuff with the DualShock 3 with the 6-axis, but, that stuff was more fine-tuned, and I think having the ability to do it in your hand where the screen's moving with you, so you're not... Because this game was later ported to PS4, and it doesn't quite feel the same. Because you're not physically turning the display, you're just turning the controller. And I guess, what about this game for you? I know this was a selection that I made for the list, but what about it to you makes it the better choice over other first-party Vita titles?
Yeah, I think it's the popularity and maybe, I don't know if popularity is the right word, but just like Gravity Rush has a name brand with the Vita. It is just definitely one of the first games I think of when you bring up that title. Again, I already said it, but like Cat became kind of a mascot out of this. I recognize that character and name without even playing the game, kind of going forward with the PlayStation brand. It's kind of like, in playing it, it kind of represents some of the stuff with the Vita. It doesn't necessarily do the touch stuff on the back pad, but like, using the touch screen, the accelerometer for the camera and stuff like that. And just like different hand positioning for some of the different mechanics. I'm thinking more specific, like the sliding and holding the two fingers on the screen and things like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the only other title that I think wholly utilized everything as a core gameplay mechanic was Tearaway,
which I also did not play.
Tearaway was great. That was I got the platinum in that. I really enjoyed my time with it, but something about this just feels even more like a Vita game. I don't know why. I mean, they're both right there. I could have easily put Tearaway. I just think this being so close to launch, it just felt like a true vision of what the Vita was.
I also think Tearaway seems like more like a again, this is from afar, not playing it, but it seems like more like a platformer. This was like that big action adventure AAA title on the Vita, and only the Vita can do this in the palm of your hands. And this is what a PlayStation 3 quality game on the Vita, much like what they try to do with Uncharted. This is what it's like to do.
Yeah, and I think where the translation of the Uncharted series to a handheld failed, this succeeded in bringing that big experience to a handheld. I do want to throw a nod out to Little Big Planet for PlayStation Vita specifically, because I do think that one, while not developed by Media Molecule, it was a game that I think wholly utilized the Vita and used the way that you could create levels and share them. You could also import and play all of the stuff from Little Big Planet 2 on the Vita was fantastic. I really, really liked that game, but alas, Gravity Rush I think is the better choice. So jumping into this for the first time, I mean, the back of the box does a little bit of it, but not quite. You do take on the role of Cat, the titular, she's not titular, but the main character, protagonist Cat. You're kind of given just as much as she is when you enter the world. It's a classic, I think, story trope, but she wakes up an amnesiac with no memory of where she came from, how she got here, or any of the realities surrounding her and her abilities. And it's kind of quickly as the world is starting to slip away, and there are, the the world's turning upside down. There's pieces that are floating away, people's houses, buildings crumbling, that someone just kind of yells at her and says, like, you've got superpowers, why don't you use them and save the people? She's just as surprised as anyone. But suddenly she's floating and can manipulate gravity, and it kind of slowly moves from there. What were your first impressions playing the game?
I liked the initial little like intro platforming section. That was kind of what I had in mind going into this game of like, all right, we're going to do some cool platforming sections with the gravity, utilize the meter as like a time limit kind of thing. And then, we hadn't really gotten into it yet, but like throw in this extra layer of combat. And it's almost, it's kind of funny that we were just coming off of Super Mario Galaxy. They're kind of weirdly have some similarities in that field, but like I was thinking like, all right, Mario does it with like planets. Here you kind of control the gravity in this world. There's going to be some cool platforming sections because of like debris being out in the world and things like that. And then instead of just stomping on Goombas like Mario would, there's some combat with some depth around it. Like striking, dodging, and special moves around it. And you got that. And then the game opens up to its open world. And I was like, oh no. And I did not realize it was open world until that happened. And it kind of adjusted my attitude towards the game. And it never turned around.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of the things that make this game difficult to wholly love in a bit. I forgot this was open world. I forgot that you kind of just have these, there are map markers and objectives that appear on screen, and some of the early, and actually throughout the game, there's a lot of tasks and quests that Kat is given where you need to go over there 500 meters and talk to somebody, then go over there 630 meters and talk to somebody, and then go over there 712 meters and talk to somebody. Now you can go to the center and you can defeat the Navi that have invaded this town square or whatever. The thing I remembered looking back on the game, like I remember the game felt, because I played it, I beat it, I don't think I played this until it came out on PlayStation Plus, like 6 months after release or so. Maybe, but I beat it kind of quickly, in about over the course of a month, but it's been, 10 years since I've played it. I remember the game feeling sour after you fell underground. That whole section where you finally like leave the main world and you go way down where you meet the kids and all of that stuff. I remember not enjoying, like in my memory, whenever I thought of the game, I just remember that being the part of the game where it was near the end and I didn't like it. And now playing it fresh, it was not near the end. It's like pretty early on. Like I'd say the first third of the game is when you end up down there, maybe halfway point.
Maybe my memory has gone in less than not so long as 10 years. I don't know. I would say it was like more so just past halfway because you're going into those other worlds due to the creator, and I feel like you do so many of them.
Sure.
And that's like the first objective, and then you go down there, and then you come back up.
I just feel like that was like chapter 8 or 9 or something to go meet the kids.
It could be. I don't know.
Either way, it is. I kept thinking that was like the final piece. You know what I mean? Like in my head, my memory of it was like this was like one of the final few chapters, but I felt like it's a little bit earlier than what my memory was. I really like the whole idea of all the kids being lost down there. Like it just gave the game a different vibe and a different story. And like you can see, I ended up doing some digging into this to learn a bit more about the influence of the game's story and background and art. But even without that, you can kind of clearly see this like comic book influence on the game, like a very strong like comic book story. And like I can fully see, and I'm actually happy because Sony's working on an animated feature of Gravity Rush right now. It was in I don't know if you saw, but just like last month at CES when they did their little like reel of things coming up or whatever. There was like it was like 2 frames or something, but they showed Cat, like it's happening. It's being put together. And like, I feel like if you think of like a very popular anime or anything like that, like think about like how Dragon Ball Z goes through that all these different sagas and like whatever, like all of the chapters in this game, like you can very much see like the Lost Children arc would be a whole season of Gravity Rush, anime series. I think there's a lot of cool characters. I really like you meet, and I'm going to butcher the name, but is it Cyanea? But the girl whose like mind you end up entering.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how to say it either.
Yeah, blue hair, yeah, but like all of that stuff you end up doing, I thought was really, really well done. But to your point, like I really hate fighting anything that is in the air. As much as this game, the gravity powers are, really well done, the fighting while flying is not.
Dude, you're being nice. I hate fighting anything.
I didn't hate the ground fights. And that's the thing, when your hits connect, it did feel cool. But so often do you completely miss your target because there's just no lock-on system. If there was something that very easily was like, I'm locked onto this, and this is the thing, now I'm going to press square and I'm going to kick. But you would do that, and then gravity would shift just a little bit, or the enemy would shift a little bit, and Cat would soar right past them.
Yep.
That part was
but my thing about the ground combat, I mean, it's better. I'm not going to say like they're equally not great, but it's better. But the problem is dodge is mapped to the touchscreen, and it's a swipe, not even a tap. So, like, your thumb completely goes away from the attack button, and like any other game like this is almost 99% of the time, unless your name is Final Fantasy 16 default controllers, your evade button is mapped to circle. Or, in the PlayStation, well, I guess PlayStation game, but it's circle and square is your attack, and triangle is usually a secondary, and X is jump. And for some reason, they didn't do that, and it's so frustrating. I did not see an option because I tried. I did not see an option to change that.
Yeah, and I never checked the remastered version on PS4 to see what it does there. But yeah, there was a lot of that where muscle memory was just like, nope, right, to dodge, you have to touch the screen. And I don't know about you, but like, I don't like touching the screen. I feel like I was much more, tolerable of it in the early days of having a Vita, but now maybe it's because the thing's 12 years old and I'm like, skittish isn't the right word, but like, I want to make sure I'm taking care of it. You know what I mean? So I hate like smudging up the screen or anything like that.
I mean, I don't mind doing the swiping stuff. I wanted to add to this comment, but I'm gonna come back around to it now. When you said about like it's like a comic book, the entire time during the story stuff, I was like, this is so infamous. This is like,
oh yeah.
And then, but yeah, I like swiping through the comic slides. I thought that was a nice.
Yeah, I did like
touch.
That.
Like, so like I don't hate the touch stuff. I just did not like the swipe for dodge. It just felt like forced. Like one of those like, oh, we're on this cool new thing that has these new features. I would have rather it be mapped to the back button.
Oh, the back touch?
Like a swipe back, or like a back touch or something. I don't know.
Yeah, if you want to utilize back stuff, there, you can still like
right
maintain a little bit of camera control or fighting and movement. While it's less. Yeah. You could just use a middle or a ring finger to pull on that. We've talked a little bit about, the game uses gravity manipulation as a key gameplay mechanic and all of that, but we haven't really talked about the actual flow of it. So I want to dive into that a little bit. I mean, the game, again, Kat is just thrown into this world, learns that she has powers, and you slowly upgrade and unlock more powers. And as you do that, you're progressing through the story and learning that there's just this invading force that Kat must stop, and in the process, like, it's combat, but it's also exploration. It's not quite the platforming that, you thought you were going to get at the very beginning with that little tutorial section, but it's a lot of exploration. Like, a lot of flight, a lot of, like, going to different spots, and a lot of, like, using perspective in new ways. Like, you're kind of not always, but often forced to, like, there's one section early on where you go through and you have to sneak into a place to attack these little guards or whatever. And, like, you need to be standing on the side of a building in order to not get seen. And by doing so, you're effectively, like, turning gravity on its side to do that. But that's, like, the key hook of the game is, like, move through this area, spin, rotate, flip, and use all of that to explore, but also combat whatever foes come your way. I guess 2 questions. One, when do you feel like the game hit its stride? Or did it hit its stride for you?
I mean, it definitely got into a rhythm. Like, I kind of knew, like, there was going to be, like, I don't want to say a platforming section, but some kind of, like, navigate obstacle section. And then to, like, a combat section and boss battle. Like, it gets into a rhythm. I never enjoyed picking up my Vita to play this game. Unfortunately. It was, like, nice to be on my Vita again. It was just not... As soon as I launched the bubble to Gravity Rush, the enjoyment kind of floundered.
I was surprised at how much I felt that this time too, because I remember liking the game again. I remember feeling weird about it toward the end, but yeah, this time it was like I finally just kind of, like, sat down and knocked out the rest of the game in one session rather than, because I was kind of, like, taking my time doing a couple chapters here and there, and there was one morning where I just was like, you know what? I've got 8 chapters left. Let's just do them. And I just burned all the way through the back half of the game really quickly. And I don't remember it being that frustrating. But yeah, the combat really did get there. I will say, as you level up Kat's abilities, like, I spent a good amount of time collecting the gems to upgrade certain things. And I made sure to put focus on things that were going to help me and help my gameplay style. So I made sure I, like, gave her a lot of gravity time, reduced the recovery time a lot. But I found myself like, what did you do?
No, I was going to say, I think we made a similar build.
Yeah, but I didn't put a lot of emphasis into certain combat skills because I found that I didn't need to. I could just, like, increase her general attack power, and that was enough for me.
Yeah, I was dumping points into kind of, like, gravity time, recovery time. Because if your recovery time's long enough, like, you can fall and get it back without ever being in danger. It's almost like in Halo Infinite when you level up the grappling hook all the way. You essentially just become Spider-Man on Halo, and you don't quite become floating, forever, but you can fall and not be concerned about ever dying because you get it back in time. It was that, and then, like, the gravity kick. So the kicks that would, in midair that do try to semi-lock, but then, like you have mentioned earlier, you semi-lock, and if that weak spot's not there, it semi-locks, and you just kind of go gliding right by. But that was again. That was kind of like where I was going for. It was like, how can I get, like, the strongest kick out of this so I don't have to do this as many times?
Yeah. I guess with the key mechanic being gravity manipulation, how do you think that theme was reflected in the story or the overall, storytelling?
Dude, the story got lost on me too. I don't know, but we got to the kids, and I was like, cool, the Lord of the Flies going on down here, but, like,
yeah.
And it was, like, cool moments, like going inside the mind of Yeah. And that was a cool moment. I actually kind of like the platforming section there as well. I kind of got that was kind of like the one section where I got what I thought we were going to get. But no, like I kind of like got lost on why we were there, the end result, and then like I guess for spoilers, but like you end up going back to the surface, and then time jump. There's a person in charge who you saw briefly in the first bit of the game.
Yeah. And
there's your final boss, almost. And then there's like the random scientist mission. It's I don't know. The story kind of got lost on me a little bit.
No, you're very right. I forgot about how disjointed that felt. Because it does. It jumps. Again, that's why I feel like I'd like to explore this slowly across like 5 seasons of a show or something. I feel like there is something here material-wise.
I mean, I like the idea early where it was like, hey, the city's deteriorating. Let's bring back the parts that have been sucked into, like, essentially like the black hole, and bringing them back. Like, that was cool, like, rebuilding the city piece by piece, that kind of, like, letting you go to more parts of the open world. And I thought that was going to be like the culmination of something, but then you end up going down, and that you kind of mentioned that it's kind of like where the like, oh, how long is this game? Oh, where are we going? It's had some rhythm to it, but now the rhythm's been broken, and it's not a good rhythm that's been broken.
Yeah, and
now you're starting to get to the point where like there's some stuff you're kind of already starting to see that like aren't the best. They're nice ideas, they're just not well executed. I think that's like, in general, I think that's this game in a nutshell. There's cool ideas, they're not the best, not the best executed.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
So I think you're starting to see like some enemy types where it's like, these are frustrating to battle, and then you have some mechanics where like, like this semi-lock-on thing is not great, but let's maybe the next power is going to be cool and work better. And then you start getting these other powers, and it's like not good. And then you get this new slime mechanic, and the slime mechanic's god awful. And then like these enemy types kept coming, and the enemy types, instead of them being like fun new obstacles, they're just more frustrating. You're doing the same thing just at different angles, and then their attacks are just frustrating to deal with. And then there's more midair fighting than there ever needs to be. As you're floating, you start to lose orientation of where you are. Granted, you can use Cat's hair as your gravitational like direction,
your compass,
man, it's still tough to kind of get oriented of where you're at, where enemies are, because there's not even like a good enemy like locator, like radar kind of thing.
It's tough to know where they are at any time.
So it sounds like me bitching, but what I'm trying to say, like the problems just kind of keep compounding, and there's like nothing enjoyable coming with the compounding.
And that's a really, really, really perfect analysis of this game. Like I think to your point, like any other game, or not any other, but right, like what you'd want out of this is for you to learn and then build and learn and build, but you kind of don't do that. You're just given a different version of the same problem, and then the game's kind of over. Like you don't really ever.
It's disappointing, really, because this is one of those ones where it goes up on the list, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna get around to that finally. I'm like, this is the Vita title, and it didn't quite deliver in the way that I wanted it to.
Yeah, no, it makes me want to replay the sequel a bit and see if it did anything different or better. I doubt it. But
that's the thing. Like, this completely turns me off from wanting to play the next one.
Yeah.
Not that I was ever like really itching to play it, like, before playing this, but this didn't do any favors for sure.
I think that's fair. Were there any surprises you found while playing the game?
How bad the sliding mechanic was.
Yeah, you brought that one up last week when we talked about Mario, and it Yeah.
Man, that a whole section was not enjoyable.
No. You got to do it twice. You got to do it down and back, and yeah.
Yep. There was a cool. I did like the. There was this section, and it's a very. I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's reminding me of From Software games, but there's a section where like, oh, I guess in this one you're going like up. Well, no, there was some falling too, but there's a lot of like going up and getting on ledges, and then going to the next one. There's like enemies along the way, and you're kind of just navigating through like these obstacles and navigating around the enemies. And it's like that very From Software thing of like, this game's platforming is not good, but we're gonna make you do something, make you do something like this. Yeah. And I don't know. I think in this game, it was unique to kind of use gravity in that sense to kind of get yourself out of these things. I mean, I think one of the nicer parts of it was like you could just fly by the enemies. Yeah, they were shooting projectiles at you, but like if you just kind of
usually dodge,
just keep going. Yeah, like again, when we were doing more on rails platforming puzzle things, that's where I liked the game. I just wish they leaned into it more.
Yeah, that was my big surprise, is like how much I liked the sections where you didn't have full or any of Kat's powers. Like the stuff, those weird platforming things, the stuff where you had to like time your jumps just right because you really could only fall in the direction that some thing was pushing you in. Those parts were fun because they made you think, where the rest of the game was just a lot of like flying and falling in different directions. And I like the idea of using gravity in a different way. And we'll talk a bit about one of the game's key influences in a minute. And I'm like, now knowing that, it kind of makes more sense why this game was developed. But I guess, were there any things about this game that you felt stood out as influences? Was there a clear like, oh, I bet they were really into this? Or was there anything that it reminded you of, just generally speaking? We talked a bit about like comic books and...
Yeah, that jumped out at me, just the way the storytelling was. The comic books, again, Infamous was like, I don't know why Infamous. But I know why, but that was the first thing that jumped into my mind, and not like comic books. I don't know about any influences, but I dug. I don't know how, or if we're going to get into it, but like I dug the art style. Like it's steampunk, which isn't like my favorite thing, but I really liked the art. I liked the art design of some of the characters and the city, and I was a fan of how they did textures and buildings that are far away and how they drew them in. Yeah,
that kind of.
I think that was.
Yeah,
they were like they were like kind of wired in a weird way.
Yeah.
It didn't look bad. It wasn't like this fuzzy building that I was trying to load in. It was cleverly done, and how they, it again with the way the art style is, it kind of almost like colors in as you're going towards that area. That was just one thing. One thing that stood out. I don't know what would be the influence there. I know there's other steampunk games, but nothing like that looks like this.
No, I don't think so. This, the one visual piece, which now seeing this guy's work makes so much sense going back and looking at the game. But the one big one was a French artist named Jean Gérard, more commonly known as Mobius. Who's an artist and a cartoonist. When you look at any of his work, you kind of can quickly see where they got their sense of like color and contrast. There's a lot of stuff in these images that just looks like the key art that you see all throughout Gravity Rush. And then looking at his stuff, it very much to me looks like there's a French movie called Fantastic Planet from 1973, and it all kind of has that vibe. And like, now I'm getting a little bit like Fantastic Planet to me feels very much like it's this, it's all about this little tiny society. So like, there's a lot of those ideas and things I think at play here as well. But that one specific artist also worked with a writer, filmmaker named Alejandro Jodorowsky on a book called The Eyes of the Cat. And when you look at that, it is like oh, that's Gravity Rush. And they said as much, right? The director of the game, Kiichiro Toyama, said he was a huge influence. And I also I don't know what access they would have had in Japan to Heavy Metal Magazine, but it gives me Heavy Metal Magazine vibes as well. The interesting thing I thought gameplay-wise, this was a weird dual interview between IGN and PlayStation Blog. But the director revealed that the game he was most influenced by when making Gravity Rush was Crackdown. He stated, "I really liked the aspect of unlocking skills and becoming more powerful and achieving a higher level of freedom as you become more powerful." Which is funny, because I just recently started a fresh playthrough on Crackdown, not even realizing the connection. And that was my thing that I loved about Crackdown. When I first played it, it was just so cool to like slowly level up, so that like, and you hear in your head, like the narrator's like, "Congratulations, you've leveled up. You can now jump 15 feet high." And the next time you level up your agility stat, he's like, "You can now jump 20 feet high, 25 feet high." And like, that whole thing feels really good, even though you're technically just, ticking up a meter. The way they present it to you is a lot more effective. And I felt like that was there in Gravity Rush, like the casual progression of her powers, like the ability to just, by the time you level up her gravity abilities, so you're just like freely flying and floating forever, you do feel like you're the master of this world in a way. Then you try and kick something and that illusion's completely shattered. But I don't know, do you feel, I know you've not played Crackdown, but do you feel like they reproduced the feel of that kind of, I don't know, just growth, powerful skill leveling up, that open world?
I mean, they definitely leaned into it. I didn't really feel it, but it was because I wanted to stop playing it, and because I didn't want to stop playing it, my exploration and my side quests, or like my side activity stuff, what I wanted to do just dwindled as I kept playing. But it's all there, like all those gems you're collecting all over the world, and the values even go up as the game goes along. Mm-hmm. You're collecting them, that goes towards it. All the activities, which another dumb. Why am I investing in something to make the activity so that way I make 150, but I spent 70 to? I don't know why we did that.
That was sure. Weird. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, but like all the side activities was like, do this in this amount of time or something, one of those similar types of things.
Yeah. And
it was like you can get a bronze, silver, gold, metal, and depending on what your reward is, you get like 600, 300, or 150. But yeah, like all the side stuff is like geared towards that like first, second, third stuff where you get all the gems and then you put the gems to your character. Like the gameplay loop is there, and you definitely want to level up some of that stuff because, again, as you are progressing, these enemies, they're getting tougher, like more health, and there's also all kinds of boss enemies where, the more strikes you can get, the better, especially in health too, because you're getting hit harder as well. Like you definitely need to throw in some points to feel stronger. So I mean, yeah, in a way, it's just I don't think it's as effective as other games that that do this type of gameplay loop.
Yeah. What is your lasting impression, Gravity Rush?
It's not the flagship title on the Vita.
Dang. It's funny. Like I closed out my review by still saying Gravity Rush to me is an essential title in the library, and early proof of Sony's initial ambitions to bring console titles to the portable realm.
Damn, we ended our reviews completely different. However, It isn't enough for me to recommend, even if you already own a Vita.
Wow. Yeah. I still, on the whole, like it. I thinking back of how it feels to actually move and all that stuff. That stuff's fun to me. And I keep trying to I've reflected a lot on this game in the last few weeks. I don't know if did I dislike it so much because I'm like moving from game to game right now? You know what I mean? Is it that weighing on me? Like if I had more time, it's really, really tough. But I don't think anything you've said or anything that we felt while playing it is invalid. I think all of that stuff is very true of it.
It's one of those games, at least for me, where it's like everything around it is cool. Like I said, I like Kat as a character. I like some of the story beats. It just by the time, like you said, disjointed, I think was a good word for towards the end of that game. I like the style. And again, I'm not even a big steampunk person, but I like the art style. I liked what I was going for there. And like the premise, again, the premise is kind of cool. It just doesn't go in a direction I thought it was going to go. It's just, when you're actually playing it moment to moment, I'm just more frustrated than I am enjoying the challenge or anything like that.
Yeah. I found myself, I think the first time playing the game and even after playing it this time, looking for, because Kat, to your point earlier at the beginning of the show, Kat became kind of a mascot of sorts, or at least like, a character you'd start seeing pop up. Obviously we saw a sequel, but Kat was a playable character in Hot Shots Golf. What was it? World Invitational, the one on Vita. And I think that was actually ported to PS3. And again, she's playable in that. She was added to PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. And then there's this might have been in the remaster. But there's like some 2B crossover stuff.
Oh.
And I don't know. For me, I feel like I remember after beating this the first time, I was like, I just wanted to play Hot Shots Golf as Kat, because I still wanted to play as Kat in something, but just not more of that game. I don't know. No one who made this game still works at Sony, so it's like, not that they couldn't do something with it, but I don't know if they will or not. It's tough to say. It's also tough to rank, I believe, which is what we have to do next. Listeners, If you're just joining us for the Free Cheese Podcast, what we do here is we talk about a single game every episode, and then at the end of that episode, we rank that game on the list. If you'd like to see the entire list of everything we reviewed to date, you can do that over at thefreecheese.com/thelist. Gravity Rush will be our 84th game. Isn't that crazy? I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Where I'm looking on the list, I know you're not gonna like, so let me look a little lower.
Where are you looking?
The first game that caught my eye was Beautiful Joe, and I was like, I like this better than Beautiful Joe, but that puts it above Metal Gear 2 and Guitar Man and Double Dash and SSX Trickies, so yeah, we gotta come down a little bit.
I can come up then, because I was kind of down into our. There's some cool ideas here. Is not.
Oh.
No. There's some cool ideas here, but it's not the best executed. Like PsyOps, Perfect Dark, like in that territory. I can come up though. I'm not. Again,
Where is PsyOps? Oh, there. Okay.
59.
No, we're close to one another. Matt's looking in the 58 to 60 range, and I'm kind of hovering somewhere in the 46 to 53 range. So we're right there. I mean,
if we kind of go towards the middle here, in the kind of that middle, the kind of 54 through 60. I think I like Obscure better, but I could put this above Star Fox or
Perfect.
right below it.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's exactly where I was looking at when we started meeting in the middle. I was going to say above Star Fox, below Obscure, and you nailed it. So,
all right, look at that. An
Yeah.
agreement.
no, I think that's perfect. So that'll make it our new 55. Our new 55. Congratulations to Gravity Rush. Our new 55. So no interest in the sequel for you, huh?
Not. I think if I was interested, I'm gonna have to do some digging to see what improvements they made.
Yeah.
And I think maybe this time I know. Well, did Gravity Rush 2 come to Vita as well, or did it just go PS4?
Just PS4, yeah.
And maybe a controller and a bigger screen, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
I've got a save file that's like a quarter of the way into Gravity Rush 2, but Gravity Rush 2 is long. It's like a 40-plus hour RPG. Not RPG, but like it has more RPG stuff in it. It's a much longer...
Well, I did not know that, and that's a new piece of intel for me.
Another new piece of intel, I misspoke because I had two 83s in our spreadsheet. This is actually our 85th game.
Oh. Well, congratulations to Blinks being number 85 now.
Yeah, there you go.
Dropped 2 spots in one episode.
Yep. I am, I'm intrigued and excited to see what Gravity Rush, the animated property, turns into.
There's
and I do
potential
still,
there.
Yeah, there is. I think they could do something neat with it. I would recommend everybody check out Hot Shots Golf.
Is it Hot Shots Golf or Everybody's Golf? Because I'm looking.
So it's one of those things that it was called Everybody's Golf in Japan, and it was Hot Shots Golf in America. That was, I think, the last one to be split by region. Okay. And then after that, now I think there's only one other release called that was Everybody's Golf, and it was released globally. But yeah, I think for us, Hot Shots Golf World Invitational was the Vita one. It's really good too, man. If you've got access to Vita still, it's a good golf game. You can get trophies on it. You can play as Cat. Pretty good. Pretty good. Speaking of pretty good, we got a pretty good episode coming up next week as well. Episode 546, where we will be talking about WarioWare Incorporated. So come back, hang out with us for that. We'll be adding that to the list. And then in a few more weeks, we've got our third Wii Sports killer to get things going with Pokemon Gold and Silver. We'll have our first impressions and discussions on that couple of weeks in the middle of March. If you're listening to this here Gravity Rush episode the week it drops, happy anniversary to the PlayStation Vita, which this Thursday is 10 years old in North America. Unless you bought the AT&T 8 gig Little Deviants bundle and you got it on February 15th, but 222.
3G, the future of cell phones.
I had it. I never activated it. I never needed to. But Nier was a cool function. It wasn't quite as good as Street Pass or as seamless, but it was very neat to see all that
Nier,
stuff.
N-E-A-R, not to be confused
N-E-A-R.
with the better franchise, N-I-E-R.
Yeah. Until next week, thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. And thanks, Gravity Rush, for being Gravity Rush. Bye.